Hi, eighth graders. We're going to be diving into the world or genre of contemporary fiction. Contemporary fiction actually means stories that take place here and now. Very often, the author does not give us a date, but there's enough information in the story that you know that the story is taking place in the present. The characters are in our collection are typically kids your age, and they are very relatable. They have the same kinds of problems you do. They have problems at home, problems in school, problems with their families, lack of self-esteem, all the things that typical young teenagers deal with every day. So in our contemporary fiction unit, we're going to be looking at how the main character deals with the conflicts of modern life, contemporary life. Modern contemporary means basically the same thing. So on the next slide, I'm going to talk about the books that are available. If you are unable to come to school to pick up a book, then what we'll do is I have a good sized story. It's not a novel, but it's a story called Seventh Grade by Gary Soto. That will be your option if you are not able to choose a book and come into school to pick it up. So that will be in this lesson as well. So let's take a look at the books that we have available for our contemporary fiction unit. The first book in our collection is Holes by Louis Sachar, and many of you know the movie, but the story of Holes is a story about a young boy, middle school age, named Stanley Yelnats, and Stanley isn't a bad kid. He just is always in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he blames that on a curse that was given to his great dirty rotten pig stealing great grandfather. And in Stanley's whole life, instead of taking responsibility for the things that have happened to him or the way he behaves, he blames the curse. So in this story, you're going to see how Stanley handles situations that are out of his control, how he finally learns to be Stanley and not be burdened by this curse. So it's a great story that has a lot of action and adventure. It takes place in Camp Green Lake, a juvenile detention camp. And the juvenile detention camp is more than it's meant to be. It's full of mystery and history, and it's a great read if you like kind of those unexpected twists and turns. If you've already read Holes, then you might be interested in Small Steps. Small Steps is the story of Armpit, one of the boys that was at Camp Green Lake with Stanley. And this is the story of what happens to Armpit after Camp Green Lake closes and he's sent back home to Austin, Texas to start his life over. He's a 16-year-old African-American boy, fairly large, so he's always dealing with discrimination and prejudice, and he just can't quite seem to keep himself out of trouble. And he knows that it's going to take small steps to go from Armpit, the ex-con, to Theodore, the upstanding citizen. Phoenix Rising is a story of a girl named Niall Sumner, and at a very young age, 14, 15, she's already lost more than most people could imagine. Her mother died. Her father took off because he couldn't handle it. Her grandfather died, so she's just left living in a small town in Vermont with her grandmother on a sheep farm. And just when you'd think she couldn't take any more tragedy or loss, a nuclear power plant in the region explodes, leveling everything from Boston, Maine, Connecticut, New Hampshire. All of New England is basically gone. So in Phoenix Rising, Niall and her grandmother take in refugees or evacuees from the nuclear power plant disaster, and they're sick because they've been exposed to radiation. So in this story, Niall is forced to open up her heart one last time to try to put her past and her pain behind her and see if she can help someone who really needs her help. And that's Phoenix Rising. Next, we have Hero by S.L. Rotman. Hero is about a 15-year-old boy named Sean Parker. Sean has a pretty tough life. He lives with an alcoholic, abusive mother. Dad kind of took a powder and he hasn't had much of a relationship with him for a long time. Because of his home situation, Sean gets himself in lots of trouble at school, even though he's smart. He gets in trouble outside of school. He gets arrested. And he just is a down-and-out kid that doesn't have a lot of prospects. So the last time he is arrested, instead of sending him to juvenile detention, he is sentenced to community service at a horse ranch run by an old veteran by the name of Dave Hassler. And Mr. Hassler doesn't put up with Sean's nonsense or his attitude or his mouth, and he really pushes Sean to show that everybody deserves a second chance. Sometimes you just have to earn it, and that's Hero by S.L. Rotman. Here is Touching Spirit Bear by Ben Michelson. This story is about a boy named Cole Matthews, also 15 years old, also a very troubled young boy. Lives with an alcoholic, abusive parent, dad. Mom is an alcoholic, but she just drinks to forget. So Cole comes from an affluent, very secure, financially secure family, but he's basically living with a monster that explodes unexpectedly. So Cole Matthews is the main character. He has broken many laws. He's been to jail. He's been to counseling. He's been to therapy, and none of that seems to work. So after his last crime, where he nearly beat a classmate to death, he is sentenced to a year of banishment on an island off the coast of Alaska in a system called Circle Justice, which is a justice system of the Native American people. And on this island, Cole has to live alone for a year, build his own shelter, get his own food, and then learn to figure out how to deal with his anger and his abusiveness, and just deal with who he is, and maybe come out better at the end of the year. Touching Spirit Bear is kind of a funny little twist or ironic twist, because Cole gets mad at an actual bear and decides to pick a fight with him. And Cole doesn't win that fight. So if you want to find out what happens to Cole on the island with a bear, check out Touching Spirit Bear. So the last book is Squashed by Joan Bauer. It's a light comedy, and it's a story about a 16-year-old girl named Ellie Morgan. She's overweight. Her mom died several years earlier, so she lives with her dad. They don't have a great relationship because he's a motivational speaker, and he wants her to be confident and self-assured. But she's not. She's overweight. She wants to be a farmer. And her biggest dream in life is to grow a prize-winning pumpkin so she can feel like she can actually accomplish something and be somebody. So in this lighthearted comedy, Ellie has to face, dealing day after day with the loss of her mom, having a rocky relationship with her dad, trying to be a prize-winning pumpkin grower, as well as possibly attracting the attention of the new boy in school, Wes, who's a corn grower. So even though it's a lighthearted comedy, it deals with death and loss and trying to figure out who you are. So this is Squashed by Joan Bauer. So here are the 6 books you can choose from, or if you are unable to come to school, I'm going to be downloading a story called The 7th Grade by Gary Soto onto Lesson 54 in Google Classroom. So we have Holes and Small Steps by Louis Sachar, Touching Spirit Bear by Ben Michelson, Phoenix Rising by Karen Hess, Hero by S.L. Rotman, and Squash by Joan Bauer. As soon as you have an idea of a book that you want, please let me know, and then I will put it in a bag in the office, and then you'll need to have somebody come in and pick it up for you, please. And this is a book that absolutely has to be returned. So if you don't think you can come get the book or return it, then I'm going to ask that you read the story that I download on Lesson 54 called 7th Grade by Gary Soto.